be discussing equation of a circle and taking it a step further from yesterday. So everything that we learned yesterday, we're going to apply today. We just need to do one step before we can actually find the center and the radius of a circle in standard form. So what today's lesson is going to include is completing the square before we actually can write the equation of a circle. So I did post a Khan Academy video that focuses on just completing the square. I'm going to do one question, walk through just completing the square, and then from there, each of our examples will include the steps to complete the square before writing the equation of the circle. So first thing, we have to complete the square to find the center and the radius. So what you're going to notice now is, I have some work here obviously, but you're going to notice that when you're given the equation, it's not going to be in standard form, meaning it's not going to be in that x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared form. So what we're going to do is we're going to work to complete the square. And completing the square is a way to factor. You did it last year, and it's very methodical in terms of you follow the same steps to complete the square each time. So when we complete the square, first thing you want to look to see is that all of your x's are kind of organized together, and then all of your y's are organized together. And the whole number, if it's not a perfect square, it's by itself on the right-hand side of the equation. Once that's all set up, completing the square is pretty simple. First thing you want to do is you want to look at your b values. So if you think about a quadratic, the b value is always the coefficient in front of the variable to the first power. So here's my b variable, or here's my b for my x, and then also y has the value in front of it. And the signs are important. So here we have b, and then we also have b here. Now you have to look at them separate because we're going to complete the square for both the x's and then the y's. So to complete the square, once you find the b term, you divide that number by 2 and then you square it. So here it is right here, b divided by 2 squared. So we're going to do 6 divided by 2 and then square it. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, 3 squared is 9. And then do the same thing. We have the negative 4 divided by 2 would actually give us negative 2, and then negative 2 squared is 4, and then this is like 3 squared gives you 9. Okay, so once you have these two numbers, positive 9, positive 4, they're going to be attached or added on as like the c for each of these quadratics. So now we have a trinomial. We have y squared minus 4y plus 4, and we have x squared plus 6x plus 9. Now if you think back, anytime we have an equation, whatever we do to the left-hand side, we have to also do the right-hand side. Equations have to be balanced. So since I added 9 over here, I have to add 9 over here. Since I added 4 here, I must add 4 here. And now you're really ready to just factor. So you have to think of the AM method. But since there's a hint, like since these are perfect squares and we're completing the square, it's always going to be, what goes inside the parenthesis here, it's going to be x, and then that b term divided by 2, which was positive 3, that's what gets tagged along with x. And think about it. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 plus 3 is 6. Okay, so over here, we're going to do the same thing. So we have the squared plus. Now for y, okay, think about it. We said it's going to be whatever the b term divided by 2 was. Okay, well, negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. So we have y minus 2, and then you can check it. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Perfect. Negative 2 plus a negative 2 is negative 4. Awesome. And then over here, you just combine all your terms. So 23 plus 9 plus 4 is 36. And now we're in that x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared standard form of a circle. So we're able to find the center and the radius. So to remind you, or kind of refresh your memory, you look here and here, right? This is going to be your h and k. We have to take the opposite signs, and then you take the square root of this since it's r squared. So we have our center at negative 3, positive 2, and our radius is just 6. Okay. So again, for all of these, we're going to follow the same exact steps. We're going to complete the square, and then we're going to write our equation in standard form of a circle to get the center and the radius. All right, so let's take a look at another practice question. So put the following equation of a circle into standard form, and let's see what we have here. Okay, so this isn't in standard form because we need the x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. This is in standard form. So what I notice is that first off the bat, y squared, there's no other y variable, so this is actually okay. This tells us, thinking back to yesterday, that y, the value of the center, the k value is 0. So that's why y doesn't have anything with it. Over here for x, we need to complete the square because x isn't by itself. And this positive 3, what I was saying before is anytime you have a number, if it's not a perfect square, it has to move over to the other side of the equation. So 3 isn't good, right? The square root of 3 is an irrational number. We don't like it, has to go away. So take a look. I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides, and now I have my new equation. And I mean, really right off the bat, I don't know this 9. When I subtract 3, I get x squared plus 6x, leave this blank, plus y squared equals 10 minus 3 is 7. So what do? I look at b, write my b term, I divide it by 2, and then I square it. That gives me 9. So now 9, I'm going to add 9 here and add 9 here. Awesome. All right, so now I'm ready to factor. And now this trinomial is a perfect square trinomial. Okay, so that means I need the same number that multiplies to 9, and when I add it, it adds to 6. Remember what we said. B divided by 2 gives you that number. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. So we know over here becomes x plus 3 squared, and I can check it. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 plus 3 is 6. Bring down my y squared equals 7 plus 9 is 16. So this is now in standard form. And that's all the question asks. But if I ask you to tell me the center and the radius, I bet you could. So the center, remember we focus on here and the fact that this is by itself. So your center should be negative 3, 0. Your radius, I look over here, and it's not 16, it's a square root of 16, which is just 4. Okay, so another example of how we complete the square to write it in standard form. And we can find the center and the radius if we need to. Okay, another question to just put the following equation to standard form. So here we have it. So we have x squared plus y squared plus 2x minus 3. So before you even look over here, again, y is by itself. And my x's is x squared and 2x. So they'll have to be rearranged next to each other. And then the negative 3's have to move over to the other side because we know we need a perfect square and this isn't a perfect square. So here it looks. We have our x squared plus 2x, leave this blank for now, plus y squared equals just 3. All right, so now if I had to complete the square to fill in that missing term, that c term here, I would look at b, I would divide it by 2, and then square it. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, square it, I get a positive 1. Whatever I do to one side, I also do to the other. So I add 1 to both sides. Now, this trinomial, I'm ready to factor, to start looking like the equation of a circle. So we can say that b term divided by 2 gives us the number to go here in order to factor. And it's positive 1. Why? Well, 1 times 1 gives us 1. 1 plus 1 gives us our 2. So we have x plus 1 squared plus the y squared is good. It's already in perfect form because we know that this value, if it was the center, would just be 0. And 3 plus 1 is 4. So now we can actually take a look here, here, and here to get our center and our radius. Our center is going to be negative 1, 0, and our radius is just going to be 2 because the square root of 4 is 2. Okay. So again, very systematic in terms of what we do. We look at the b term, divide it by 2, square it, add that number to both sides, complete the square, and then just look for the center and the radius. Okay, so now we have some just regions questions that we've seen on previous exams. And here's the first one. Here's your equation of the circle. They want the center and the radius. All right, so first thing when I look here, I notice that x squared is just the only variable for x is just x squared, so I'm good with just x squared. The value in my center of that h is actually 0. Now over here, I'm going to have to fickle around with the y's because I have to find that missing term. So before you even get started, think about what you have to look at. You have to look at the b term, right? We said you divide the b term by 2 and then square in order to complete the square. So that's what we began to do. I did 6 divided by 2, squared it, and got 9 because half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So when I rewrite this, this is how it looks. X squared plus y squared plus 6y plus 9 equals, now over here it said 7, so it's going to be 7 plus 9. I keep it balanced by adding that number to both sides. Okay, x squared is great. It's taken care of, done. Don't need to worry about it. Over here I have to complete the square, or I have to factor it now. So what number multiplies to 9 and also adds to 6? Remember, it has to be that perfect square factoring. So I know if I divide this term by 2, I get that number. Positive 6 divided by 2 is a positive 3. So here is what it looks like. I just rewrote this here. X squared stays. It's y plus 3 squared equals 7 plus 9 is 16. So my center is going to be a 0 that goes with the h. Negative 3, because I take the opposite sign, and then the square root of 16 is 4. So 0, negative 3 with a radius of 4, and there it is. Okay. And again, I know this is kind of a little more algebra driven, and it's hard. We're trying to learn, virtually through listening to me, kind of walk through my key. But please, if any part of this is confusing, reach out to me. We can schedule something where I can kind of walk you through it, and we can figure it out a little bit better. All right. Have number 9 of the August 2015 regions. Another question where they really just ask you to take this equation and now just focus on the radius. But here's the thing. In order to find the radius, I have to make sure the entire equation is in standard form. So although I'm only looking for the radius, I need to do all the steps. I need to complete this square, find the center, find the radius, or really just then focus on the radius, but it has to be in standard form. So I'm going to look at my equation, and some things that I notice is that my x's are nicely kind of combined or in proper form. My y's are, and then I have this negative 12. So remember what we said, if there's a whole number, unless it's a perfect square, it has to be moved over to the other side. Negative 12, not a perfect square, got to add that to the other side. And then we're going to work with just our b terms to complete the square for the x's and then the y's. So let's kind of take a look at what we did. And I'm going to kind of expose everything, just not the answer, like this. Okay, so we rewrote this, and I always like to kind of like leave a line and then fill it in. I added 12 to get that 12 on the other side, and then we take the b term, divide it by 2, and square it, and we get 4, right? We take this b term, negative 6, divide it by 2 and square it, and we get 9. And then we add that 4 and that 9 to the other side as well. Awesome. Now work on factoring. So I'm going to focus on just this trinomial, right? It should be basically the set of parentheses. We know it's x, other set of parentheses, plus set of parentheses, y, close it, equals. Well, over here, the equals, it's pretty straightforward, right? If we add everything together, we have 9 and 4 is 13 and 12 is 25. And then the center, I need to just figure out how to make this that perfect square. So I go to here to b, and I said 4 divided by 2 is a positive 2. Okay, done. And that works. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 plus 2 is 4. Awesome. Over here, negative 6 divided by 2 is a negative 3. That works. Negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. Negative 3 plus negative 3 is negative 6. We're all good. Here it is. Perfectly factored. I look at my center. This isn't really necessary, but here, this is what I really need. My radius is a square root of 25, which is just 5. So choice 3. The radius is 5. And then number 3, again, we're just working to write this in standard form, find the center and the radius of the circle. So for questions like these, what you want to make sure is that all of your x's are kind of in one spot, and then all of your y's would also be in one spot. This 17 is no good over here because it's not a perfect square, so we have to move it over. So you can kind of like just look through what I did. I feel like I sound like a broken record by now, but when I rewrite this, here are the x's, here are my y's, right? I found this 4 by completing the square or saying, okay, -4 divided by 2 squared is a +4. -14 divided by 2 squared is a +49. So 4 and 49. I also added 4 and 49 here. Now, super, super key. When I subtracted the 17, it became a -17. So when you assess this right-hand side, it's -17 plus 4 plus 49, which gives you 36. Common error. Usually when we do that, we forget to keep the negative. And then these trinomials just get factored, right? I know x minus 2 squared would give us this trinomial if I refactor it, or redistribute, I should say. So here I have -2 times -2 is 4. -2 plus -2 is our -4. So this trinomial is factored into here. And then also same thing over here. It's y minus 7 squared would work with this. So I can find the center would be +2, +7. Radius is the square root of 36, which is just 6. Okay, and last question is here. So this question has multi-steps. It first wants you to write the equation in standard form, find the center and the radius, then graph it. So again, let's see how we did this. I kind of separated my x's and my y's. I found that c term by dividing the b term by 2 and squaring it, divided -16 by 2 and squared it, then added those values over here. Another thing that I had to do was in the way beginning, this +52 can't be there. It's not a perfect square. So when I subtracted it, it became -52. When I combine like terms, or when I kind of assess over here, -52 plus 4 plus 64 is +16. And when I factor both of these, I get x plus 2 squared plus y minus 8 squared equals 16. So that's my entire equation in standard form. The center, I look here. All right, so that means it's -2, +8, right? We take the opposite signs. Good. Radius, focus my attention over here. Take the square root. Square root of 16 is just 4. So now when I graph this, how do I graph it? Well, center is -2, 8, bam. The radius is 4. So notice, I don't have my compass. Well, I do, but I wanted to show you. I don't have my compass, or pretended like I didn't. I can use the radius of 4. So go out 1, 2, 3, 4, put a little dot, up 4, down 4, to the left 4. Then I kind of just sketched my circle as best as I could. Wrote the equation with it, and we're done. Okay? So, again, this lesson was kind of adding some algebra by completing the square. Is completely necessary in order to write the equation of a circle in standard form. We found the center, found the radius, graphed the circle in this question here. This lesson is awesome. I really, really enjoy this lesson just because it kind of shows your ability to just bring in your algebra skills, bring in geometry skills. Next year, if you decide to go on to Algebra 2, you will need to use skills like this where we're factoring, but we're also using different forms. Like here's the equation of a circle in standard form. So we kind of like factored, put into a certain form, used our new skills and understanding that equation, and then we graphed it. Okay. Remember, there's no assignment formally that goes with this, but next week you'll have a practice assignment on Castle Learning that will include some of these questions. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to private message me in Google Classroom and I could help you out. Enjoy your weekend.